My parents mocked me because my assets were not as good as my sister's. So I persevered and saw the day I received money from them every month to live. My name is Violet Green, 33 years old, living and working in Tucson, Arizona. I run a small auto repair shop off the highway. Nothing flashy, but I'm independent and know how to stand on my own. I've never been used to family dinners for love because in my family, love always came with conditions. So, when my mother invited me home on a Friday night, saying there was something important to discuss, I already knew it wasn't an invitation. Her house sat on the outskirts of Scottsdale, a gated garden-style villa that looked cozy to outsiders, but inside it was cold in every sense of the word. When I arrived, Sabrina, my older sister, was already there, lips painted a loud red, holding a glass of white wine like she was posing for a luxury alcohol ad. She smiled, a kind of smile that makes you want to take 2 steps back. "Oh, Violet made it on time. I figured you were busy patching tires on the side of the road somewhere." I didn't respond. I'd heard that kind of comment for over 20 years. My dad folded his newspaper, adjusted his glasses, and said dryly, "We've decided it's time to divide the family assets." I glanced at Mom. She was pretending to fuss over the roast chicken, but her hands were trembling as she turned the tray in the oven. As for Sabrina, she lit up like she'd just won the lottery. "I'm getting the villa in Laguna Beach, right?" Sabrina nearly squealed. "That's right, sweetheart." My mom nodded, voice as sweet as syrup. "Blue ocean, White House, infinity pool. It's all yours." I stared at my glass of water, my fingers tightening around the rim. And me? What do I get? Dad turned to me, not making eye contact. "As for you, Violet, we've decided to let you manage the lot on 7th Street. I blinked. "You mean the abandoned parking lot behind the old gas station?" "Yes, land is still land. You can make something of it." "Start small," he said, like he was handing me a precious gift. Sabrina burst out laughing. "Well, hey, at least you'll always have a place to sleep under the stars free of charge." Dad nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe you can open a lemonade stand or rent it out to someone with a tent. Call it a nature experience." I sat still, my chest as hollow as the cracked lot they just shoved in my hands. In that moment, a memory surfaced. I was 15, coming home from my first day at the garage, hands greasy, beaming with pride. I'd brought home my first paycheck thinking they'd be proud. Sabrina was on the couch crying because she didn't get the latest phone. And me? Dad glanced at me and said, "You planning to smell like engine grease for the rest of your life?" Mom muttered, "Well, at least she's doing something with her hands." That week, Sabrina got a brand new iPhone. I got indifference. I stood up, my voice unusually calm. "So, she gets the beach, and I get cracked concrete and weeds." But Dad shrugged. "You should be grateful. Some people get nothing." Sabrina lifted her wine glass like a toast. "I'll remember to invite you for summer break if you can find flip-flops that don't melt on asphalt." I looked her straight in the eye, then turned to my parents. "Thanks for the reminder. I'll turn what you call trash into something worth staring at." I walked away, leaving their laughter behind me. I drove back to my small apartment, still reeling from that night. A white villa in Laguna Beach for my sister, and for me, a weed-covered parking lot. I shouldn't have been surprised. I had never been their priority. Even as a teenager, I knew I wasn't like Sabrina. While she learned to paint nails and watched makeup tutorials, dreaming of a reality TV life, I spent my after-school hours crawling under hoods, learning how to change oil, tighten bolts, and read engine diagrams. At 16, I got my first job at a small garage outside town. Those early summer days were brutal. I wore a safety helmet too big for my head, hands always slick with oil, sweat dripping under the scorching 100-degree heat. But I didn't mind. I still remember getting my first paycheck, $240, and bringing it home like it was a trophy. I placed the check on the dinner table, hoping for even a glance of encouragement. Mom was busy picking out bedsheet patterns on her iPad. Dad just flipped to the next page of his newspaper. $200 to breathe in fumes, he muttered. This girl's really planning on living in engine smell forever. Sabrina, sitting across from me, laughed. You better get yourself some expensive perfume. People might think you just crawled out from under a car. I smiled weakly. Not because it was funny, but because it was the only way to keep my heart from cracking. 3 days later, Sabrina showed off a used BMW repainted pastel pink. A reward for embracing her femininity, they said. No one explained further. I didn't ask. It wasn't the last time. At 20, I saved up and enrolled in a night course in electric vehicle technology at the community college, 8 months long. I worked full-time days, studied at night, and took my final exam right after an 11-hour shift. When I graduated, I printed my transcript and taped it to my parents' fridge. The same fridge covered in doctor appointments, water bills, and distant cousin wedding invites. 2 days later, the paper disappeared. No one mentioned it. I asked Mom if she saw it. She didn't look up from her phone. Oh, that thing, it got wet. I tossed it. Was it important? That same week, Sabrina threw a birthday bash for her 25th in Palm Springs. My parents booked her an entire luxury villa with a private chef, DJ, and a full video team to make it look like a wedding. I wasn't invited. I only found out when the family's shared social account posted a photo. Nothing better than time together. I looked at the picture. Dad toasting with Sabrina, Mom hugging her from behind. All smiles. The caption hit harder than anything else. Family is everything. I hit leave group without hesitation. From that point on, I stopped expecting anything. But strangely, a tiny part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, one day, they'd see my worth. Not through the clothes I wore, my hairstyle, or my perfume, but through the things that truly made me who I am. Today, the parking lot they threw in my face might be the last time I let them trample what I stand for, because this time I no longer want their approval. I want them to witness with their own eyes the very thing they once mocked rise up and turn something seemingly worthless into something impossible to ignore. I stood before the city's zoning map, staring at a long rectangular patch of land wedged between an old industrial block and 2 service roads. Just cracked concrete, tangled weeds, and a rusted sign barely clinging to its post. Sabrina said I'd end up sleeping under the stars. She was wrong. I returned to the empty lot on 7th Street one Monday morning. The sun was harsh, casting shadows into every crack of the broken pavement. No fence, no sign, nothing but a piece of land forgotten by time. I stood there, arms crossed, took a deep breath, and asked myself, if they see this as trash, can I turn it into gold? First came the paperwork. I went to the city planning office, waited 3 hours just to get the official site survey. Then I ran around asking about outdoor dining permits, building a small stage, and setting up lighting systems. They looked at me like I just asked how to open a casino in the desert, an abandoned parking lot. What are you planning to do there, miss? The man at the permit desk raised an eyebrow. I smiled faintly. A place people will remember, not a place to park. After 3 days of knocking on every office door, I returned to the garage where I'd worked for the past 9 years. Jeff, my boss, was a silver-bearded man who always spoke softly but saw right through people. I sat down, pulled a rough proposal from my backpack, and spread it across the same table where he usually ate his sandwich at lunch. I'm not asking to quit, I began. I'm asking to invest. Jeff chuckled, folding his arms. Let's hear it. What do you plan to turn that junk lot into? I told him about my idea to create an outdoor food court, a space with food trucks serving Mexican tacos, handmade pizza, locally roasted coffee, a small stage for weekend live music, wooden pallet benches, string lights hanging above, a chill zone with canvas cushions beneath a salvaged steel art. Not flashy, but solid and different. Jeff stayed quiet for 2 minutes. Then he stood up, walked into his office. When he came back, he placed a thick envelope on the table. No contract needed, just make it count. I took it, throat tight. $30,000 from a man who wasn't family. Never said he loved me, but always noticed what I ate for lunch. The next 3 weeks were a race. I hired a backhoe, cleared the land, repaired the electrical system, bought second-hand equipment from liquidation markets to build an outdoor kitchen for the food trucks, laid recycled bricks for the main path, hand-painted a wooden sign for the entrance, the greasy garden, half joke, half real, easy to remember. I called Becca, an old friend from art class, to redecorate the space with hand-drawn details. She looked around and said, "You're nuts." But nuts with a blueprint. We built a small stage from reclaimed wood, installed speakers, hung lights, spread picnic blankets, and secured a permit to sell craft beer for events. Opening day came in the sweltering heat of July. I didn't know if anyone would show up, but they did. A group of college kids came to hear live music. An elderly couple stopped by for afternoon coffee. A dad brought his daughter for pizza. Then more and more. I sold out of 400 sandwiches in one night. 3 days later, a post went viral online. From parking lot to culinary haven, Violet Green is making Tucson pay attention. In just 3 weeks, the Greasy Garden became the city's newest hotspot. Every weekend night, the stage had live bands. The benches were full, the lights always on. On Instagram, our tag kept popping up, each post a new affirmation. I wasn't just good at fixing cars. I knew how to build something out of what others threw away. I stood behind the coffee bar, watching the long line of people, the scent of grilled meat in the air, the strum of guitar, the smiles of strangers filling the void I had carried for years. And I knew this was just the beginning. I was wiping down tables one quiet Sunday afternoon when I heard the click-clack of high heels on concrete. I looked up and saw Sabrina, tight white dress, Chanel purse on her arm, makeup so polished it looked like she was headed to a gala, standing at the entrance of my food court. And right behind her, like a shadow, was my mother. My heart didn't skip. My breath didn't catch. Just one single feeling, a calm forged from years of distance. Sabrina glanced around, lips pressed tight as she took in every corner of the Greasy Garden, now featured on maps, blogs, and foodie sites. "Violet," she called, her voice stretched like she was greeting an old maid. "I didn't think you'd actually turn that parking lot into, this." I didn't answer, just tilted my head. "What word would you prefer? Night market, charity zone with string lights, or that place you'll never be able to build yourself?" She froze, but Mom stepped forward, dressed in a beige suit, hair perfectly combed, pearl bracelet gleaming. The kind of jewelry I'd never been allowed to touch. "We need to talk," she said, trying to sound composed. I pointed toward the taco stand. "Monday to Thursday, 3 to 5 p.m. I have 5 minutes between rushes." Sabrina scoffed. "Oh, come on, this is family business." I crossed my arms. "Family? That word sounds strange coming from either of you." They were quiet for a beat. Then Mom softened her voice. "We all know this land originally belonged to the family. We gave it to you. But now that it's doing so well, maybe it's time to discuss a partnership." I almost laughed. "Partnership?" I repeated, fighting the urge to burst out. Sabrina jumped in, her voice sharper. "I want you to sell. This is family property. Mom and Dad always meant to keep it for both of us. No one thought you'd commercialize it on your own." I looked her straight in the eye. "When you all tossed that land at me like a joke, I didn't hear anyone say family property." "I just think you should consider it for the family," Sabrina insisted, her face reddening as she held back. "You already got your share. Laguna Beach, remember the villa with the pool, the ocean view balcony, and the white sofa you flaunted all over Instagram?" Sabrina frowned. "Things aren't the same anymore. The real estate market's a mess. You're doing well. I just thought maybe we could both benefit." I looked at Mom, then back at Sabrina, my gaze steady. "Now, Violet," my mom said, suppressing her frustration. "I know I've been harsh, but this is a chance for the family to reconnect." I nodded slowly. "Reconnect after you let me grow up feeling like I was always second choice. After she laughed in my face and told me to sleep under the stars. After this whole family turned silence into a weapon to crush every effort I made." "That was a long time ago," Mom whispered. I took one step forward, my voice low but clear. "No, it never passed. It was just buried under weeds in that lot. And now that I've made it bloom, you show up with shovels, ready to dig it up and take the fruit." Sabrina's face went pale. Mom still tried to hold on. "So, you're turning your back on family." I let out a soft laugh. "No, I'm just choosing to move forward without dragging along the people who once pushed me down." Without another word, I left them frozen in place amidst the acoustic music from the small stage and the sound of people laughing around them. They once thought this place would be my final failure. What they didn't realize was that their contempt had become my fuel, and now they'd come knocking. But no one opens the door for those who only show up when the table's already set. One early fall afternoon, while I was reviewing our weekly produce order, my phone buzzed non-stop. 3 missed calls from a familiar number. Sabrina. I set the phone down and didn't answer. 10 minutes later, a message came in. Please, I need to see you. Urgent. Just 10 minutes. I didn't respond, but I knew she'd come. And right on cue, an hour later, the silver sports car she used to flaunt on every platform rolled into the lot, now looking like it had just come out of a financial war zone. Sabrina stepped out. No silk dress, no heels, just a wrinkled tee, faded jeans, dark circles under her eyes, and a messy bun. For the first time in years, she wasn't wearing makeup. You've got 5 minutes, I said, without looking up from my iPad. Sabrina swallowed hard. You know the real estate market's crashing, right? I didn't respond. I have to sell the villa, but I can't. Bad credit. The bank wants $200,000 just to let me list it again. I looked at my sister. The same sister who once laughed in my face because I wasn't the one living in Laguna Beach, now standing in front of me on the concrete I once cleared with my bare hands, asking for help. So I asked, voice calm. You can help a loan in advance. Call it whatever you want. I know you can. I nodded. Yeah, I can, but I won't. Her eyes widened. Why? I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Just like you could have supported me back then, but you didn't. Remember when you were sipping champagne in your villa and telling me I'd never do anything with a cracked slab of concrete? Sabrina was speechless. She opened her mouth to respond, but I raised a hand. You made your choices. And so did I. She turned and walked away from the lot in silence. I thought that was the end of it. But not even 3 days later, my parents showed up. I was mid-conversation with an event planner when I spotted them at the entrance. Not stepping inside, not calling my name, just standing there like relics of a world that no longer fit. I made them wait another 10 minutes before I approached. Looks like you all just remembered I'm part of the family, I said, unable to hide the sarcasm. My father looked noticeably older. His hair had gone white, his shoulders hunched, and the edge in his eyes had long faded. My mother still carried herself with some elegance, but her eyes darted around, and her voice was no longer steady. We need to talk seriously, Mom began. I nodded. Go ahead. I've got 10 minutes. Dad sighed. My business. It's collapsing. Partners pulled out. Operational costs are out of control. Your mom lost a big investment in real estate, too. I stayed quiet, waiting for the part I knew was coming. We need a loan around $500,000. I chuckled, not loudly, but just enough to make a few nearby customers glance over. Then I stepped closer, voice low and even. I once needed a hug, a simple congratulations, a look of acknowledgement. I got none of that. And now you need $500,000. Mom reached for my hand. Violet, we're family. I pulled my hand away. Family doesn't abandon each other, doesn't mock the ones they claim to love, and they don't come crawling back only when they need money. My dad furrowed his brow. You've made it. Can't you be a little more generous? I looked him straight in the eye. It's not that I'm stingy. It's that you both taught me the most expensive lesson of all. Everyone lives with the choices they make. My mom's voice trembled. We'll pay it back. We'll sign a contract with interest, whatever it takes. I took a step back and nodded lightly. Fine. A contract possible, but the price won't be cheap because aside from the money, what you both lost was my trust. I stepped back into my world, leaving them standing in the middle of the buzzing food court, the place they once called a joke. I didn't argue, didn't make promises, didn't even say no. I simply let them see that the Violet they once treated like nothing was now the one they had to beg. That night, I sat in my tiny office, just a converted shipping container, staring at my computer screen, feeling strangely calm. I hadn't shouted, blamed, or pleaded. I just said no, And for people like them, that hurt worse than a slap. But I knew one thing for sure. They wouldn't stop there. 3 days later, it came true. While checking the review section on the Greasy Garden's official page, I saw the first post. Overcrowded, cold food, rude staff, avoid -1 star. Then the second, dirty space, music too loud, owner doesn't know how to run a business, 1 star. Then a third, way overpriced for what it is. Owner's ungrateful to her own family, 1 star. I chuckled, not out of sadness, but because it was just too predictable. The last line gave them away. That wasn't a real review, that was personal. They didn't need weapons, just Wi-Fi and a few clicks to spread poison. I didn't respond. I didn't retaliate. I stayed silent and called Malene, my lawyer. I think it's time we review every permit and license, I said. You looking to defend or attack? Malene asked, voice sharp as ever. Both, I replied. The next day, a city inspector showed up, clipboard in hand, voice polite, but eyes apologetic. We received an anonymous complaint. He said, someone reported that this location may not meet outdoor food service regulations. I nodded. I figured who sent it. We're required to inspect, he added, clearly uncomfortable. Go right ahead, I smiled. I've got everything in order. My lawyer will have a copy in your inbox within 10 minutes. Over the course of 1 week, I got hit with 3 more surprise inspections: food safety, lighting compliance, and noise control. Every time, I stayed calm, courteous, and had every single permit ready to present. Malene helped lock down every corner of the business, from public liability insurance to sublease agreements. We even filed supplemental registrations just to make sure no one could exploit any legal loophole. I also hired a professional cleaning crew twice a day, replaced all old trash bins with eco-friendly ones, and added QR-coded feedback signs throughout the venue, making fake reviews easy to detect and easy to dismiss. But I didn't just defend. I struck back with calculated kindness. I launched a $5 student meal program every Tuesday. I hosted nonprofit music nights for local bands, and I partnered with food bloggers to feature the Greasy Garden as a leading eco-conscious dining destination. I stood in the middle of that old lot, once the place where people dumped disappointment, now a gathering space for those seeking something real. Every fake review made me work harder. Every bitter word made me calmer and sharper. And then 1 week later, the official review site posted a public statement. The Greasy Garden has passed all inspections and is now recognized as a benchmark model for outdoor dining venues in the city. We commend their professionalism and transparency. I didn't have to say a word. I just reposted the link with 3 simple words. Thanks for the concern. My family once tried to bury me into the ground. I simply rose up from it. That Saturday night, the Greasy Garden was packed. Just like every weekend, an indie band was playing upbeat melodies beneath golden string lights. The air filled with the scent of food, laughter, and the energy of a street festival right in the heart of the city. I was standing at the central booth checking the very important person guest list when a strange noise came from the entrance. A white SUV screeched to a stop. The door flew open, and then I saw Sabrina. My sister stepped out in a wrinkled red satin dress, one heel crooked, her hair a mess and mascara streaked like she'd either cried or thrown up. A half-finished wine glass in hand, she stumbled toward the stage area. I immediately signaled my security team. Sabrina spun around unsteadily, then shouted into the crowd. Look, everyone, Violet Green, the parking lot queen. I came to celebrate. The music stopped. People paused their meals, their conversations, their laughter. Dozens of eyes turned on her and then on me. I walked toward her, keeping my composure. Sabrina, I think you should leave. I'll call a car for you. She sneered, stepping in closer. Oh, no, no, no. You don't get to kick me out. You owe me your whole life. Who would you be without the Green name? This family property isn't yours alone. I took a step forward, voice calm. You're drunk. People are watching. You need to go now. Sabrina laughed loudly, then suddenly snatched a cocktail from a guest's hand and threw it straight at my chest. A collective gasp echoed from the crowd. The cold drink soaked my shirt, the scent of citrus and vodka hitting my nose. But I didn't flinch. I stared her dead in the eye. "Escort her out," I said to security. But Sabrina thrashed and shouted, "You think you're so noble? You're just a grease monkey who got lucky. You're no better than the rest of us." 2 guards grabbed her arms, trying to be gentle, but she twisted and screamed like someone possessed. "I'll sue you. I'll take everything back. This belongs to my family." I turned to Aiden, head of security. "Call the police. She just assaulted someone and caused a public disturbance." Some guests had already started recording on their phones. Sabrina kept screaming and cursing as she was restrained. 10 minutes later, red and blue lights flashed across the glow of the greasy garden. Officers arrived, listened to my statement, and proceeded to arrest her for disturbing the peace and assault with liquid. Sabrina was handcuffed. Her face was pale, mascara running in 2 dark trails down her cheeks. She screamed as they led her to the patrol car. "Violet, you're a monster! You're destroying this family!" I said nothing. My mother arrived 10 minutes later, still in her nightgown with a fur coat thrown over it, slippers on her feet, panic written all over her face. She rushed to me, grabbing my arm. "Violet, you can't let your sister be arrested like this. She's blood. She's family." I pulled my arm away, voice cold. When I was 17, standing in the yard holding my straight-A report card, with hands stained in engine oil. "What did you do for your blood then?" Maybe that was a long time ago. No, I cut her off. "You taught me this lesson. You live the life you earn." Her eyes welled up. "Please, can't you just let this one go?" I looked at the police car fading into the distance. I've let a lot of things go in my life, but not this time. I turned and walked away, leaving her in the glow of the fairy lights, soft music playing again, and hundreds of strangers watching from their tables. I never thought I'd return to the house on Belmont Drive, the place I grew up in silence, surrounded by laughter that never included me. But then an email from Western Mesa Bank popped up in my inbox with a subject line that made my hand pause mid-keystroke as I was submitting a new inventory order. Property in foreclosure, Belmont Drive, Tucson. I froze for a few seconds, fingers still on the keyboard. No surprise. After Dad's business collapsed, and after Sabrina's scandal at the Greasy Garden went viral, they didn't have many options left. The bank would seize the house. The so-called perfect family home, with white stone steps, green painted fences, and mahogany windows, was about to slip through their fingers. But it wouldn't go to strangers. I quietly placed a bid through a small legal firm under a representative's name. I didn't need them to know. I just needed everything done by the book. No exceptions. A month later, on a dry morning, while I was planning to expand our food space to the adjacent lot, Ava, my assistant, said someone was waiting in my office. "Who is it?" I asked, eyes still on the layout. "Your parents?" I looked up, not surprised, just earlier than I expected. They sat silently, their eyes heavy, no designer clothes, no polished looks. Mom wore an old sweater and clutched a paper bag. Dad looked like a piece of him had faded away. I sat down across from them, said nothing. Let them speak first. "Violet," Mom began, voice breaking. "The bank took the house. We have nowhere to go." Dad stared at the floor, silent. "Your sister's still under supervision. Not home yet. We don't want to sleep in the car." I nodded slightly. "And now I'm family again." Mom didn't argue. She simply pulled out a crumpled stack of papers. "We can pay monthly. Just need somewhere to stay until..." I cut in. "No need to negotiate. I already have a solution." I opened a drawer and placed a file on the table. Mom took it, flipped the first page. Her eyebrows tightened. A lease agreement. I sat up straighter, voice firm, emotionless. "I bought the house on Belmont Drive legally in my name, and I'm offering to rent it back to you at market rate. All terms are outlined." Dad gripped the papers, hands trembling slightly. "You really want to do this to your own parents?" I looked him in the eye. "Do you remember what you said when you gave Sabrina the beach house and handed me a cracked parking lot? You told me to be grateful I got something. Well, today I'm giving you something too. With conditions just like you taught me." I'm choked up. The rent is high. "Too high? How are we supposed to manage?" I smiled faintly. Still cheaper than what I paid growing up in that house, feeling like I never belonged. Dad leaned in, holding back frustration. "You're getting revenge." I shook my head. "No, revenge is tearing down the house, kicking you out. This is a chance to live decently in a home you once said wasn't mine." Silence. Thick air between us. Eventually, Dad picked up the pen and signed. His hand shook so badly he touched the edge of the paper twice. Mom didn't look at me, just bowed her head and scribbled her name. I slid the contract into my leather folder, stood up. "See you at the start of the month. If the rent's on time, all goes smoothly. If not, I'll enforce the contract." I turned and walked out. Outside, sunlight streamed through planters along the path, lighting the once cracked pavement where weeds used to grow. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt justified. They once taught me that value must be earned through effort. Now they had to pay for what they once thought came free. 3 months later, I got an automated email from the law firm. "Lease payment received from Mr. and Mrs. Green. On time, no remarks." I clicked and closed the tab. No smile, no sarcasm, just a quiet acknowledgement of reality. I was the landlord now, and they were tenants. The house I once grew up in, once ignored at dinner tables and crushed beneath their comparisons, now bore my name. They walked its hardwood floors I repaired, used the fireplace I maintained, looked out on a garden I wasn't allowed to enter because my clothes were dirty. They could enjoy the view now under one condition: rent due on the 1st of every month. I didn't need their calls, didn't need their thanks, didn't need their apologies. Their silence once broke me. Now that same silence tightens around their pride every single day. Every Sunday morning, I still drive past that neighborhood, not to rub it in, but because it's on the way to my organic produce supplier in North Tucson. I glance at the old house, curtains always closed, old car parked by the curb, no party lights, no music from the backyard. They live quietly now, just like I used to. One late afternoon, I was sitting on the rooftop of the greasy garden, now expanded into a full culinary complex with a book cafe and poetry stage, when a group of college students came to meet me. A girl named Lena, a senior in food business, shyly handed me a proposal for a plant-based food truck concept. "You're the reason I believed I could build something from nothing," she said, eyes glowing, "from a piece of land nobody wanted." I looked at the packet, nodded. "You don't have to start in the right place. You just need to be angry enough, tough enough, and never forget why you began." We signed a small partnership contract, giving the students a section of the east lot to launch their pilot. They squealed and hugged. I stayed back, sipping mint tea quietly. Sabrina was released on probation after 2 months. She didn't contact me, didn't apologize. I didn't expect her to. I heard she's now working part-time as a spa assistant in Flagstaff, her first steady job after more than a decade of floating. I didn't feel joy, but I felt peace, because I knew life had finally taught her what I learned at 16. No one owes you anything, and no one gets to live off someone else's work forever. I still keep my old grease-stained coverall hanging in the office, the one I wore on my first day at the garage. I don't need it anymore, but I keep it as a reminder. I didn't start at the top. I started with oil on my wrists and a parking lot people laughed at. Now I don't need their validation. I don't need belated affection. I don't need awkward apologies. I just need one truth. I'm the only one in this family who stood up. Not for revenge, but for dignity. And the irony, they live in a house I own, pass by my face on magazine covers, hear my name at startup events, and each month they have to remind themselves. Each month they fund the life of the person they once mocked. I didn't take revenge, I just stopped bowing. Violet's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the people closest to us force us to rise alone. But with enough grit, you don't just survive, you turn pain into power. In real life, there will be moments when you're overlooked or left behind. What matters isn't what they think, it's how you respond. Just like Violet, you can rewrite your place with the very hands they once dismissed.